June 13, 1944. Paris, France. 2:17 a.m., the city sleeps beneath the shadow of occupation, cobblestone streets slick with rain. Street lamps flicker against the darkened facades of Haussmannian buildings. A distant siren wails, but it is not the usual drone of Luftwaffe bombers. It is something new, something terrifying. Above, the sky vibrates with a strange mechanical hum. A pulse jet engine screaming over rooftops, low and relentless. Residents wake in terror as the first V-1 flying bomb descends. Its wings slice the air like a predator. It is a weapon unlike any the world has seen, pilotless, unstoppable, precise. From windows and doorways, Parisians watch in frozen disbelief as buildings shake. Debris explodes, and the earth trembles under the impact. Fires flare in the distance. Smoke curls into the night sky, a dark signal of death raining from above. In the narrow alleys and hidden courtyards, members of the French resistance, the Maquis, hold their breath. Young men and women, clad in civilian clothes, armed with nothing but rifles, pistols, and explosives. Listen to the mechanical drone and the shattering impacts. Jean-Pierre Dubois, barely 20, grips his revolver tightly. "It is unreal," he whispers. "How can a weapon fly without a pilot? How can it kill without warning?" The V-1 is more than a bomb. It's a psychological weapon, a message of inevitability. Each pulse jet scream carries the weight of Nazi revenge and technological terror. But fear quickly shifts to resolve. In safe houses across Paris, resistance leaders convene. Radios hum with intercepted German communications. Intelligence reports indicate launch sites across northern France. The city may be under siege, but the underground network is alert. They understand the stakes. These weapons could turn the tide of Allied advances, at least slow them. Resistance fighters begin planning. Every scrap of information, every hidden observation, is another arrow in their quiver. They study the V-1's flight patterns, its launch procedures, and the vulnerabilities of its infrastructure. The bombs continue to scream overhead. Houses rattle, windows shatter, and hearts pound. But the Maquis are no longer paralyzed by terror. They are beginning to map the enemy's weaknesses, to plot sabotage that will make the drones fall silent. In one small apartment near Montmartre, a group gathers around a crude map of northern France. Jean-Pierre traces the coastline with a trembling finger, marking known launch sites. "Here," he says, voice low but fierce, "if we destroy this depot, we can delay the next wave. We can save lives." Around him, other fighters nod. Each understands that direct confrontation is impossible, yet intelligence, stealth, and courage might achieve what guns alone cannot. It is a gamble. One misstep could mean death, yet in these dark, suffocating nights, fear is transformed into daring, and despair becomes purpose. The first acts of sabotage begin almost immediately. Resistance operatives sneak across fields and forests under cover of darkness, planting explosives on rail lines and fuel depots. They gather photographs, intercept German communications, and relay them to Allied intelligence. Every action is coordinated to disrupt the V-1 program, to buy Paris and the surrounding regions precious hours and lives. The hum of the V-1 continues overhead, a terrifying lullaby of destruction, but now it is, countered by human ingenuity and courage. For the first time, the Maquis begin to feel that these flying terror machines are not unstoppable. June 20th, 1944, northern France, approaches to launch sites. The morning mist clings to the fields as resistance operatives move silently, crouched in ditches and hedgerows. Every footstep is measured. Every shadow is a potential German patrol. The hum of the V-1 is distant but growing, a reminder of the mechanical terror hovering above Paris. Lucien Moreau, a veteran saboteur of the Maquis, peers through a pair of binoculars. Smoke rises faintly from a camouflaged warehouse. Soldiers move in tight formations, guarding what looks like a crate-filled hangar. Inside, the dreaded V-1 bombs are being readied for launch. "This is where we strike," Lucien whispers, pointing to the building. "Destroy it, and we delay an entire wave. Save hundreds of lives in Paris tonight." The operatives move into position. With bags of explosives strapped to their backs and hearts pounding, they creep through the underbrush. Timing is critical. The hum of a V-1 launching in the distance makes their task all the more urgent. One false move could trigger alarms, and German soldiers would swarm the field in minutes. As they place charges along the fuel lines and structural supports of the depot, nerves tighten like steel cables. Each tap of a detonator wire feels like the echo of Paris itself, the lives of thousands depending on a small, calculated act of bravery. Meanwhile, in Paris, residents listen to the distant buzz of approaching V-1 South. Windows rattle, dogs bark, mothers clutch children to their chests. Yet amidst the fear, underground networks relay warnings and organize evacuation routes, reducing casualties. The city, though terrorized, is beginning to fight back in its own way. Back in northern France, Lucien gives the signal. One by one, the explosives ignite. A distant roar follows as flames erupt, fuel tanks burst and the hangar collapses. Smoke and fire cloud the sky. The resistance retreats before German reinforcements can arrive, disappearing into the fields like ghosts. The effect is immediate. The next wave of V-1 South is delayed. Launches fail. Operators scramble to repair damage. The Allies gain critical hours to evacuate civilians and reinforce defenses in Paris. Jean-Pierre Dubois watches reports from Paris and whispers, "They thought they could terrify us from above. But we have shown them that no machine, no matter how advanced, is unstoppable." The psychological impact on the Germans is profound. Commanders in the V-1 program are stunned. Reports arrive of destroyed launch sites, damaged supply lines, and sabotaged communications. The supposedly unstoppable flying bombs are faltering. Panic spreads among operators. Every failed launch fuels suspicion, doubt, and fear. The Germans, confident in their technological superiority, face the inconvenient truth. The human spirit cannot be programmed. Across-occupied France, similar raids unfold. Trains carrying V-1 components are derailed. Bridges that would have carried rockets to launch sites are destroyed. Every act of sabotage is a strike, not just against machinery, but against tyranny itself. In the skies over Paris, the drone of the V-1 is no longer omnipotent. The resistance has learned, adapted, and struck back, proving that even in the shadow of death from above, courage and strategy can tilt the battlefield. July 5, 1944, Paris, Rue Saint-Honore. The city trembles under another wave of V-1 flying bombs. Their pulse jet engines scream overhead, a mechanical howl slicing through the early morning air. Civilians dive into shelters, furniture rattles, windows shatter, and fires ignite on the streets. The terror is palpable. But within the heart of the city, the French resistance is no longer paralyzed by disbelief. Madeleine Lefebvre, a young operative barely 18, crouches in the shadow of a crumbling building. Binoculars trained on a distant launch site across the river. Around her, a small group of Maquis members readies explosives, maps, and radios. Each knows the risk. Discovery means torture or death. Yet the alternative in action is far worse. This time, we cut their supplies before the next wave, Madeleine whispers. We can't stop the bombs in the sky, but we can silence their factories of terror. The Maquis spring into action. Teams move under cover of darkness to rail depots, warehouses, and fuel storage facilities. Carefully timed explosives rip through tracks, crates, and machinery. Saboteurs relay their movements using secret codes and hidden signals to avoid detection. Every action is precise, every second critical. The V-1 South, which had previously seemed unstoppable, are now being delayed, misfired, or outright destroyed on the ground. A launch site set ablaze roars like a furnace, scattering soldiers in chaos. Flames illuminate the night sky, a beacon of defiance visible even from occupied streets of Paris. In the streets, civilians witness the results. Rumors spread of successful raids, confidence grows. People whisper of unseen heroes dismantling death from afar. The city, long subdued under Nazi occupation, begins to reclaim a sense of agency. Jean-Pierre Dubois coordinates from his safe house, monitoring reports of damaged launchers. "They think the bombs will break us," he mutters. "But for every V-1 that falls, we've struck back twice as hard." The Germans respond with fury. Engineers rush to repair destroyed sites. Security tightens, patrols increase. Yet for every reinforcement, the resistance has already adapted. Intelligence gathered from reconnaissance missions and sympathetic locals ensures that each raid is smarter, faster, and more precise than the last. The V-1, designed as a psychological weapon as much as a missile, loses its terror. The omnipresent hum that once froze Parisians in fear now signals opportunity to the brave few working in the shadows. One daring raid near Calais exemplifies the scale and precision of the operations. A small team infiltrates a depot, planting explosives on the V-1 assembly line. Hours later, smoke and fire signal success. Launches fail. Lives in Paris are saved. The city's defenders, ordinary citizens turned saboteurs, feel a surge of triumph. Every failed launch, every destroyed site, every thwarted mission chips away at Nazi morale. Hitler's vengeance weapons, once a symbol of unstoppable technological power, now falter under the ingenuity and courage of a determined underground. By mid-July, the psychological tide has shifted. The resistance no longer reacts to terror, they dictate it. Launch sites are sabotaged before rockets even leave the ground. Communications are intercepted, supply lines are cut. Every successful operation buys Paris more safety, more hope, and more time for the advancing Allies. The V-1, once a symbol of fear, now highlights one undeniable truth. No machine, no matter how advanced, can triumph over human courage, intelligence, and defiance. August 1st, 1944, northern France, near Pas-de-Calais. The early morning fog rolls across fields of wheat and hedgerows, hiding small forms moving with deadly purpose. Resistance fighters, disguised as farmers and laborers, carry crates of explosives, detonation timers, and tools. Every heartbeat is measured. Every shadow could be an enemy patrol. Lucien Moreau, seasoned saboteur, whispers instructions to his team. Once the sun rises, they will begin preparations for the next wave. They strike before they can fire. The target is a V-1 launch facility, a maze of camouflaged rails, fuel tanks, and assembly buildings. Inside, German engineers are oblivious to the invisible threat creeping toward them. The tension is palpable. The first charges are planted along fuel pipelines. Explosives snake beneath crates containing bombs yet to be armed. Timers are set. Escape routes memorized. The hum of distant V-1 south overhead is a chilling reminder that failure is fatal. Madeleine Lefebvre, crouched behind a hedgerow, checks her watch. Every second counts. Flames will erupt, alarms will sound, and they must vanish before German reinforcements arrive. Chaos erupts in the German camp. Explosions tear through assembly lines. Fire consumes the structures. Soldiers scramble, shouting orders, searching for saboteurs who have vanished like ghosts. Nearby V-1 South, fueled and armed, are destroyed before they can launch. The roar of pulse jet engines is drowned by the crackle of fire and the shouts of panicked soldiers. From their hiding spots, the resistance watches with a mixture of fear and triumph. Paris will be safer tonight because of this operation. Every bomb that fails to launch is a life spared. The strategic impact is enormous. German commanders are forced to delay or relocate launch sites. Supply chains are rerouted under increased security. Resources are diverted from the front lines to counter an enemy they cannot see and cannot predict. A weapon designed to terrorize an entire city is now hobbled by a handful of determined fighters. Jean-Pierre Dubois intercepts radio chatter, describing the destroyed facility. A grin crosses his face. They believed the V-1 was unstoppable, yet no idea who was really controlling the battlefield. Meanwhile, in Paris, civilians begin to sense the change. The terrifying drone is no longer omnipresent. Shelters see fewer frantic visitors. Windows that once rattled violently remain intact. Rumors of resistance successes bolster hope. Mothers whisper of unseen heroes who risk death nightly to protect the city. The resistance's operations are relentless. Every sabotage mission weakens German control, delays launches, and builds momentum for the Allied advance. Each successful raid is a tactical victory and a moral one, showing the limits of fear when courage acts decisively. By mid-August, repeated sabotage has disrupted almost all V-1 activity targeting Paris. Launch sites are burned, rails are twisted, and bombs are destroyed before takeoff. The psychological impact on both occupiers and the occupied is staggering. Fear is transformed into agency, despair into defiance, and terror into calculated resistance. The V-1 South may scream, but now they scream over empty fields, destroyed depots, and failed German plans. The city's heartbeat is no longer dictated by mechanical drones. It is guided by human courage, intelligence, and resilience. August 25th, 1944. Paris. Late afternoon. The city holds its breath. Not in terror this time, but in disbelief. For weeks, the sky had been ruled by sound. The mechanical growl of the V-1, the sudden silence that meant death, the delayed thunder that shattered streets and lives. But now, for the first time in months, there is only the wind. No buzzing, no engine, no warning. The streets fill slowly at first, cautious faces emerging from doorways, eyes scanning the sky as if afraid the scream might return. Then, like a tide breaking free, Parisians pour into the boulevards. Church bells erupt across the city. Resistance armbands appear openly. Tricolor flags unfurl from shattered windows, and moving through the smoke and rubble Allied armor. The V-1 terror is over. Far north, in the ruins of the launch corridors, German officers sift through blackened rail lines and twisted steel ramps. The vengeance weapon that was meant to break Britain, then Paris, now lies dismantled by hands they never saw. Interrogations begin, executions follow. Fear spreads, not in the city anymore, but inside the collapsing Reich. Reports confirm what Hitler refused to accept. The French resistance crippled the V-1 campaign, not with armies, not with air fleets, but with wire cutters, explosives, radios, and betrayal from within the occupied world. Each destroyed ramp shaved days off the weapon's effectiveness. Each delayed launch saved thousands of lives. Each intercepted fuel convoy starved the sky of death. Germany had unleashed the future and lost control of it immediately. In Paris, the price becomes visible. Tired districts reduced to rubble. Families searching for names carved into improvised grave markers. Children who still flinch at any distant engine sound. The V-1 campaign killed over 6,000 civilians in Britain and thousands more in France and Belgium. And yet it failed. It failed to break morale. It failed to halt the Allied advance. Instead, it exposed desperation. A regime so cornered it turned to terror without strategy, science without restraint, power without control. For the resistance fighters, there is no parade. No medals in public squares, no official recognition yet. Lucien disappears into civilian life. Madeleine burns her codebook and returns to teaching school children. Champierre dismantles his radio piece by piece and buries it beneath a tree outside the city. Their war ends quietly, but the echo of what they did changes military history. For the first time, civilian underground networks had decisively blunted a strategic weapons campaign. But with intelligence, courage, and timing. The V-1 was the world's first cruise missile. It was defeated not by generals, but by ghosts. In Germany, the final reports reach Hitler too late to matter. Launch failures, sabotaged fuel lines, stolen guidance parts, entire V-1 battalions rendered useless before firing a single weapon. The Führer rages. Executions follow. Within months, Allied armies cross the Rhine, Berlin falls, and the weapons once meant to terrorize the world become museum relics, studied, copied, and repurposed by the very nations they were meant to destroy. The V-1 does not kill the future. It becomes the foundation of it. In Paris, burned, but free. The scream that once ruled its skies survives only in memory, and in the stories whispered by survivors who remember freezing in place when the engine cut out. Now, silence means life again. Silence won not just by armies, by ordinary people who decided the sky would no longer belong to fear.